The last thing Kimberly Monroe probably heard was her car radio, Madonna, Live to Tell, playing at maximum volume on AM radio, May 10th, 1986. The song was still playing when police found her car 37 minutes later. Engine warm, purse gone, she wasn't. What happened in those 37 minutes? 5:45 p.m. Kimberly punches out from her shift at the grocery store. 5:52 p.m. She starts her cream-colored Oldsmobile. 6:15 p.m. She should be walking through her front door. She never does. No witnesses. No struggle. No screams. Just silence. But silence isn't empty. It holds secrets. And in 1986, someone in this quiet corner of Aroostook County created a silence that would last 37 years. Until now. For 37 years, her family waited for answers. Tonight, you'll learn the truth about what happened on that Mother's Day weekend in Washburn, Maine. A truth so close to home, it had been hiding in plain sight all along. This is Cold Grim Files, and this is the story of Kimberly Monroe. You're about to enter the mind of a killer who walked among friends, neighbors, people who trusted him. For 37 years, he watched a family destroy itself with grief. He watched search parties comb through woods where he knew they'd find nothing. He attended vigils. He probably offered comfort. Because the perfect hiding place isn't a remote forest or an abandoned building. It's right here, in plain sight. This is Cold Grim Files. We don't just tell you what happened. We show you how evil hides, how justice finds its way through decades of lies, and how one family's refusal to give up brought a killer to his knees. What you're about to witness isn't just another cold case. It's a masterclass in how predators operate, how investigations fail, and how modern forensic science can reach back through time to grab the truth by the throat. But first, let me show you exactly who Kimberly Monroe was in her final hours. Not the victim the newspapers created, but the real 17-year-old girl who had no idea she was being watched. Because understanding the victim is the first step to catching her killer. And in this case, catching him meant destroying everything he'd built to hide behind. 37 years of lies. One moment of truth. This is how it all came crashing down. Kimberly Ann Monroe, 17 years old, honor roll student, dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She had her mother's smile and her father's stubbornness traits that would define both her short life and her family's 3-decade quest for justice. Washburn, Maine wasn't the kind of place where girls disappeared. A small town in Aroostook County with barely 1,600 people. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where doors stayed unlocked, where the biggest crime was teenagers drinking beer down by the Aroostook River, until May 10th, 1986. The day everything changed. 5:45 p.m. Kimberly punches out from her Saturday shift at the local IGA grocery store. She'd worked there for 8 months, saving money for college, saving money for a car that wasn't always breaking down, saving money for a future she'd never see. Her coworkers would later tell police she seemed normal that day, maybe a little tired. She'd mentioned plans to see her boyfriend later. She'd talked about Mother's Day brunch the next morning. Nothing seemed wrong, but someone was watching. Someone who'd been watching for weeks. 5:52 p.m. Kimberly starts her cream-colored Oldsmobile Cutlass. The drive home should take 15 minutes. She takes the same route every day, Main Street to Durgan Road, a quiet stretch through potato fields and forest. 6:15 p.m. Claire Monroe stands at her kitchen window, watching the driveway. Kimberly's late. Not unusual for a 17-year-old, but something feels off. 6:30 p.m. No, Kimberly. Claire calls the IGA. Her daughter left 45 minutes ago. 6:45 p.m. Claire calls her husband Roland at the volunteer fire station. He tells her not to worry. Kids are always late. 7:15 p.m. Roland Monroe drives Kimberly's usual route. That's when he sees it. Kimberly's car. Engine cold now, but still warm to the touch. Keys in the ignition. Radio still on. Madonna had long since given way to static. The driver's door wide open. Like she'd just stepped out for a moment. But she hadn't stepped out for a moment. In her entire life, Kimberly Monroe had never left her car running with the door open. She was careful, responsible. Her father had taught her that. 7:22 p.m. Washburn police arrive. Within minutes, they know this isn't a breakdown. This isn't a girl who wandered off. This is something else. No signs of struggle in or around the vehicle. No blood, no torn clothing. Her purse is missing, the brown leather one she'd saved 3 paychecks to buy. But here's what makes detectives' blood run cold. Her jacket is still in the car. May in northern Maine means temperatures in the 40s after sunset. Kimberly would never have left without her jacket. The conclusion is inescapable. Someone made her leave that car. Someone she either trusted enough to roll down her window for, or someone who gave her no choice. By midnight, 50 volunteers are searching. By dawn, 200. They comb through the woods on both sides of Durgan Road. They search the potato fields. They drag the ponds. Roland Monroe doesn't sleep. Claire Monroe can't stop calling the police, asking if there's news. There's no news. Just a growing dread that Kimberly Monroe isn't coming home. The investigation moves fast in those first days. Lead Detective Frank Bouchard from the Aroostook County Sheriff's Office interviews everyone who knew Kimberly. Her boyfriend, he'd been at work. 20 witnesses confirmed it. Her ex-boyfriend, he'd moved to Massachusetts. Co-workers, classmates, teachers. Everyone loved Kimberly. No one had reason to hurt her. No one saw anything suspicious. But detectives developed theories. Had she picked up a hitchhiker? Had someone followed her from the store? Was this random? Or had someone been planning this? Forensics in 1986 are limited. They dust for fingerprints, they find Kimberly's, her parents', her boyfriend's. All explainable. They collect hair and fiber samples. But DNA testing is years away from being standard practice. Tips pour in. Someone saw a suspicious van. Someone saw a man on Durgan Road. Every lead is followed. Every lead goes nowhere. Weeks become months. The massive searches become weekly vigils. The community's certainty that Kimberly will be found alive becomes grim hope that her body will be recovered. Claire Monroe becomes desperate. She hires psychics. One says Kimberly is near water. Another says she's in a barn. Police search every pond within 50 miles. Every barn. Nothing. By 1987, the case is cold. Not forgotten, never forgotten in a town like Washburn, but cold. Detective Bouchard retires in 1994. The case still haunting him. New detectives inherit Kimberly's file. They review it periodically. They find nothing new. Claire and Roland Monroe hold a memorial service in 1989. Nobody. No closure. Just a granite stone marking a life stolen and a family shattered. Years pass. Then, decades. But the Monroes never stop. Every Mother's Day, Claire holds a vigil on Durgan Road. Every year, fewer people come. But she never misses one. By 2010, she's alone most years. Just her and Kimberly's memory, and the crushing weight of not knowing. She calls the police department monthly, then weekly. The message is always the same. Please, don't forget my daughter. The disappearance destroys the Monroe marriage. Roland throws himself into work, refusing to talk about Kimberly. Claire can't talk about anything else. They divorce in 1995. Roland dies of a heart attack in 2008. He dies not knowing what happened to his little girl. The local media covers the anniversary every few years. 10 years later, still no answers. 20 years later, a mother's hope. 30 years later, the girl, Washburn, can't forget. Claire hires 3 different private investigators over the years. They're all kind. They all try. They all find nothing new. Then, something changes. 2018. The Maine State Police forms a dedicated cold case unit, focused on unsolved disappearances and homicides. Armed with modern technology, fresh perspectives, and, most importantly, DNA databases that didn't exist in 1986. Detective Sarah Mitchell volunteers for the unit. She's 37 years old, the same age Kimberly would have been. She's from a small Aroostook County town herself. She understands what a disappearance does to a community. Mitchell pulls Kimberly's case file. 3 boxes, 32 years of dead ends. She starts reading, and she finds something. Not new evidence, old evidence. Evidence that was collected but never properly analyzed because the technology didn't exist. Microscopic traces found in Kimberly's car. Hair that didn't belong to her or anyone known to be in the vehicle. Epithelial cells from where someone had touched the interior door handle. In 1986, this evidence meant nothing. In 2018, it means everything. Mitchell sends the samples to the state lab. 6 weeks later, she has a DNA profile. Male, unknown, no match in CODIS, the criminal database. But CODIS isn't the only database anymore. Genealogy websites, places where people upload their DNA to find long-lost cousins, have created a new tool for law enforcement. It's called genetic genealogy, and it's already solved cases like the Golden State Killer. Mitchell uploads the DNA profile to GEDmatch, a public genealogy database, and she gets a hit. Not the killer himself, but a third cousin. Someone who shares enough DNA to build a family tree backward. It takes 4 months. 4 months of building family trees, eliminating branches, cross-referencing with the original investigation. Mitchell needs someone who was in Washburn, Maine in 1986. Someone between the ages of 18 and 40 at the time. Someone whose timeline fits. And then she finds him. Thomas Merrill, age 68. Retired potato farm equipment operator. Lives in Presque Isle, 12 miles from Washburn. Married for 40 years. 3 grown children. 7 grandchildren. Volunteers at his church. Coaches Little League. By all accounts, a pillar of his community. And in May of 1986, he was 31 years old, living in Washburn, and he participated in the search for Kimberly Monroe. Mitchell digs into Merrill's past, and she finds cracks in the facade. 1979 arrested for assault in New Hampshire. Charges dropped when the victim didn't testify. 1982 restraining order filed by a woman he dated. 1984 fired from a job after complaints from female coworkers. And here's what makes Mitchell's blood run cold. Between 1985 and 1990, 3 other young women disappeared from rural areas within 100 miles of Washburn. None of the cases were ever solved. None were officially connected. Mitchell sends their evidence to the lab. She's looking for connections. While she waits for results, she watches Thomas Merrill. Not just police surveillance, she obtains search warrants for his trash, his DNA from discarded coffee cups, his movements. 3 weeks later, the lab calls. The DNA from Merrill's coffee cup is a match to the DNA from Kimberly's car. Not a familial match. An exact match. September 12, 2023, 6 a.m. State police execute an arrest warrant at the Merrill residence. Thomas Merrill answers the door in his bathrobe. His wife is making coffee. The house smells like bacon. On the mantel are photos of grandchildren. Thomas Merrill, you're under arrest for the murder of Kimberly Monroe. His wife screams. His neighbors gather on their lawns, confused. This can't be Tom. Tom who mows their lawns when they're sick. Tom who organizes the church potluck. The community is shattered. Again, 37 years ago, they lost a daughter. Now they discover a monster had been living among them all along. At first, Merrill denies everything. Coincidence. Contaminated evidence. He barely knew Kimberly. He just helped search for her like everyone else. But Mitchell has more than DNA. She has his work schedule from 1986. He clocked out from the farm equipment depot at 5 p.m. that day, giving him time. She has witness statements from coworkers who remember him talking about Kimberly, how pretty she was. She has his 1,986 pickup truck records. A vehicle that matched a vague witness description from near Durgan Road. She has phone records from 1986 showing he'd called the IGA grocery store 3 times in the weeks before Kimberly disappeared. He claimed later he'd been asking about job openings. But the IGA wasn't hiring. 10 hours of interrogation. Merrill grows tired. Mitchell doesn't. She shows him photo after photo of Kimberly. Not crime scene photos. Photos of her smiling, at Christmas, at her junior prom, at her graduation. She never got to attend. She was 17, Mitchell tells him. She was saving money for college. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She had her whole life ahead of her. What did you take from her, Tom? What did you take from her family? I didn't mean for it to go that far. And then it all comes out. He'd been watching her for weeks, following her after her shifts, learning her routine. He told himself he just wanted to talk to her. He convinced himself she'd flirted with him at the store. She hadn't. She'd been friendly the way teenage girls working retail are friendly to every customer. That night, he followed her from the IGA. When he saw her pull over, she'd pulled over to change the radio station, to adjust her volume. He saw his opportunity. He pulled up behind her, got out, told her he thought her tire looked low. She rolled down her window. She was polite. She was 17 and taught to be respectful to adults. He asked if he could check the tire. She said, okay. When she got out of the car, he grabbed her. She fought. She was strong all those years on the high school track team. But he was stronger. He forced her into his truck. He drove to a remote area on his family's old property, 40 acres of woods his grandfather had left him. Property that police never searched in 1986 because Merrill volunteered with the search parties. No one suspected the helpful neighbor. He killed her that night. He'd tell police he didn't mean to. But the forensics would later tell a different story. He buried her in those woods. And for 37 years, he went on with his life. He got married 6 months later, had children, became a grandfather. He watched Claire Monroe's vigils from a distance. He probably felt powerful, untouchable. But DNA doesn't forget. And Detective Mitchell didn't give up. The trial lasts 3 weeks. Merrill's defense argues the confession was coerced, that the DNA could have been transferred innocently. But the jury doesn't buy it. Claire Monroe takes the stand for victim impact. She's 77 years old now. She's waited 37 years for this moment. You didn't just take my daughter. You took every birthday she never had, every Christmas, every grandchild I never got to hold. You took my marriage. You took my husband's peace before he died, and then you had the audacity to live a happy life while we drowned in grief. Guilty, first-degree murder, kidnapping, abuse of corpse. Judge Catherine Walsh doesn't hesitate. Life without parole, and a directive for the state to excavate Merrill's family property. 3 days after sentencing, Forensic teams find human remains buried 4 feet deep on Merrill's property. Dental records confirm it. After 37 years, Kimberly Monroe is coming home. Her funeral was held on December 3, 2023. The church in Washburn overflows. People who were children when she disappeared are now grandparents themselves. But they remember. Washburn remembers. She's buried next to her father. Her headstone reads, Kimberly Ann Monroe, 1968 to 1986. Found, remembered, forever loved. Detective Sarah Mitchell now trains other cold case investigators across New England. Kimberly's case has become a template for how genetic genealogy and persistent detective work can solve seemingly impossible cases. Because of this case, Maine State Police have reopened investigations into the 3 other missing women. DNA analysis is ongoing. Families that lost hope decades ago now wait again, but this time with reason to believe answers might come. The Kimberly Monroe Scholarship Fund awards $5,000 annually to Aroostook County students pursuing veterinary medicine, the career she never got to have. 74 students have received it so far. 74 young people whose futures Kimberly's memory is helping to build. Claire Monroe visits Kimberly's grave every Sunday. She's at peace now, she says. Not happy, you're never happy when you bury your child. But at peace, she knows what happened. She knows justice was served. She knows Kimberly isn't alone in those woods anymore. Thomas Merrill is serving his sentence at Maine State Prison. He'll die there. His family has disowned him. His name is synonymous with betrayal in the communities that once embraced him. Durgan Road looks different now. The abandoned stretch where Kimberly's car was found is paved, well lit. New houses dot the landscape. But older residents still feel a chill when they drive past that spot. Some slow down. Some say a prayer. All of them remember. This is the final lesson of Kimberly Monroe's case. Cold cases aren't cold because investigators don't care. They're cold because the tools didn't exist yet. Technology advances. Databases grow. DNA that means nothing in 1986 becomes the key to justice in 2023. But technology only works when someone refuses to give up. Detective Mitchell, Claire Monroe, the forensic genealogists, the prosecutors, everyone who believed that Kimberly deserved more than to be forgotten. There are thousands of cold cases across America, thousands of families waiting, thousands of killers who think they've gotten away with it. But science doesn't forget. Justice doesn't expire. And somewhere, someone is working on the case that will bring the next Kimberly Monroe home. This has been Cold Grim Files. Remember the victims. Never forget their names.